The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, "See everything we do." Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. I hope you're enjoying these video segments that we're doing, offering them to you for people around the world. If you know somebody who would like them, make sure you hit the share button or tell them about it, all right? Today, Scott Tallman Powers. The video is called In the Market.
Hello, my name is Scott Powers, and thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be doing a demonstration of one of my most favorite subjects to paint, and that is a market scene. And I just want to give you a little bit of background information on myself. I went to the American Academy of Art in Chicago from '93 through '97, and that was probably one of my best decisions I've ever made. That school really fit my personality, and so did my instructors. My instructors were Ted Smith-Gavich for oil painting, Dr. John Trapp for life drawing, and Robert Krajewski for my fundamentals class. And those are my three most influential instructors. And after school, I would go to the palette chisel a lot, and just about almost every day, we'd go there to do head studies and quick sketches and whatever else we could do. So getting as much lifetime as we possibly could. So after 4 years of art school and going to the palette and chisel, I worked as an illustrator for about 4 years and really wanted to pursue my dream of being a fine artist. So I quit illustration and started painting. And a rough road. It was very difficult. Still is, but it's something that makes me extremely happy. So, but some of my influences through school and continue today are like Jules Bastien-Lepage, the French painter, Antonio Mancini, Mariano Fortuny, E. Marsal, the father. The son is a fantastic fashion designer, but the father is a big influence on me, and a number of different ones. I make enormous lists of some of my favorite artists, and I study them constantly. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about trying to set up in a market scene and do it where you don't go crazy, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to be extremely observant. And I mean, just a few things that I could mention is it's real important to find an area where at least you have like one wall, like right behind you, or right next to you, or something. And I would even grab like garbage and things like that, and I would kind of put it right around me to where you would keep the crowds from forming around you too closely. Because sometimes I've had it in the past where I didn't do that, and I was swarmed. And because you're something very different for the people in other countries that have never seen, you know, a foreigner painting on the street before. So it's very interesting for them. So that's all part of the experience, which I love too. But you definitely want to be able to get your work done. So also in a market is there's a lot of patterns. There's a lots of, if you were taking like a bird's eye view of like a market, say like a rectangular market, and there's all kinds of stuff going on, but there's like these little circular rhythms that are going through the markets at all times. And people are repeating things. They're going to sell the same things and going to pick up some more produce or whatever to bring it back from their buggies or carts or whatever they have. And so there's a lot of little circles going around. So, but you just have to be patient long enough to actually see it. And you can find your patterns. You can find your light and dark patterns and a certain thing that might inspire you to really attach yourself to and attach a concept to. So I would actually sit for a little while and just kind of watch in a spot, and I'd be taking photos as well, and just kind of trying to pay close attention to the cultural aspects of the area. Whether you're in China or Guatemala or India or anywhere else, there's going to be patterns in their clothing. There's going to be all kinds of things that like subtle little gestures they may do with each other. So it's important to pay close attention to those types of things. And with all that, you'll be building your memory. It's paramount to be building our memories out there, because the photo is not going to be able to capture everything, and we're not going to be able to capture everything in paint whenever we're doing our little studies out there. So so it's just really important to just keep building on that and try to remember the little nuances as much as possible. I try to think in pictures, so I can go inside my mind's eye and kind of like study you know, subtle temperature changes that I remembered, or certain patterns, and then the photographs will help me remember, and my life study will help me remember also. And so you'll start to get more into your life study as well. Also, when it comes to the camera, and I'm going to show you the camera in a second, but what you want to do is you don't want to stand too close to your subject. If there's someone sitting right down, they're selling some fruits and vegetables or something on the ground, you don't want to be right on top of them taking a photo. You need to be back, because there's going to be a lot of camera distortion, and you need to be cautious of the camera distortion, because you're going to have to do a lot of correction of the distortion as it is. You want to minimize it as much as possible. So stay back at least, 20, 30 feet. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my camera. Through trial and error, I've found a good lens. I got a decent body. It's a really good body that I can use for this, and I don't mind beating it up a little bit. So here, let me talk to you about the camera here. This is a Nikon D40X, and I have a Tamron lens that's it goes from 18 to 250 millimeters, and I have a little sun shield here. This is a great lens because you can get close-up subjects and subjects that are far away at the same time. Not at the same time, but you could zoom in and zoom out really quickly without changing your lens. So you never have to change it. You never have to worry about dust getting inside your camera. I had issues with that whenever I was, had to carry two lenses around with me. So that's, it's a helpful thing to have, because when you're in the field, you don't want to have to keep changing your lenses all the time. So, and this is the only thing I really carry besides another little point and shoot, small little Sony. So this is really helpful lens for this. But what I also do is I just kind of cover up all the labels of my camera with some black tape, and this camera's already kind of a mess, so it looks pretty ragged because I'm not very clean. My paint on my hands or whatever gets all over it. But it works great, and I have about an 8 gig card that goes in it that can store a lot of raw images. I only shoot raw. I don't shoot anything else that's less than that. And then I'll also have a camera strap here that is you can go to a travel store and find a camera strap that is cable lined. These are steel cables that are in here that it cannot be cut easily. I mean, if someone knew it was a cable in there, they could get some wire cutters and probably squeeze the heck out of it and maybe cut it, but it'll just still take them a while. And so what I have here, since this is a cable lock, a cable strap, I have this carabiner thing on here at all times. So whether I am, having dinner or whatever, this thing gets locked up. Either it's on a chair, or if it's around my tripod, around my leg, or I will have this usually whenever I'm painting in the market. I'll have it over my shoulder to where I can have it accessed at all times. But whenever there's a lot of people around, I kind of tuck it down around my waist and still continue to paint. But then if I see the subject that I need for my painting, I can just reach up and grab my camera and start shooting, because I keep it on so I don't have to have any kind of delays. But whenever, going back to setting up in the market, another thing that you want to be conscious of is just be safe about it. There's a lot of countries that you have to worry about that to a certain extent. It's always good to travel with a buddy, 2 or 3 people or more. It's always safer than by yourself. You want to always kind of, I have this rule of mine. It's like a 3 to 5 second rule. A 3 to 5 second rule, meaning that I clip all my stuff together, and if someone's going to be looking at it and it's going to take them more than 3 to 5 seconds to remove my equipment to steal it, they're most likely going to walk away. So these carabiner clips will kind of deter someone that's going to steal your equipment. And I like to get the red ones or the bright ones so they can see it. I don't want it being hidden. I want this clip to be visible so they can tell that everything is locked together and you know what you're doing. And that may be a little bit overkill, but that's the way. I'd rather avoid any kind of bad situation, because the most important thing is to get a good painting. That's a little bit about how I set up, and but I hope that helps out. And we're going to be talking about our little studies. I'm going to show you my studies in a second that I did from life in China, and some of my steps up to that point, and I'll discuss how I kind of came to the study that I'm going to do for you today. So I'm going to step aside here for a second, and then we're going to show you the studies. Okay, I should start off by this piece right here. This is the study that I did from life. And how I did this, I didn't use any photography for this particular thing, and I cropped off some of the other parts of the painting. There was just too much going on in here, and I cropped it to where it's going to be in the same proportions as what my canvas is now that I'm going to do for you today. You can't really, with the market scene, I can't really get to a point where I'm going to finish in 4 hours. So that's going to be, it's just too much. So there's too much going on. So I took a lot of photos, and I got to piece this thing together, because this is approximately what I'm going to have, but I'm going to have this figure over here a little closer, like I have in this other study that I did in the studio based off of this in the photograph. But what I did with this figure here, being that she wasn't done from a photograph, is that I would watch for, there'd be a lot of the women that were dressed the same that would be coming back and forth and repeating into that area, coming to shop. And I'd watch for those types of patterns too. So it's extremely challenging to do it that way, but that's what I'm talking about, like building your memory. That way you can actually memorize a lot easier the more you really work to kind of piece everything together, and piece it together in your mind's eye too, and watching these patterns and these cycles of people coming through. And you can use about, 5 or 6 people to paint one person. And you can also do that in a city scene or anywhere else you go when there's people involved, walking on the street or whatever. So you don't have to do everything entirely by a photo. And I think this actually brings more life to it too, whenever you can paint it from life and then hone it up from a photograph. This is basically what we're going to be doing today. I made some corrections and stuff, and I moved some things up and got rid of some of this was a distraction. If I was going to have her in here and cropped, I'd probably have her over here looking this direction. But I'm not going to worry about that now. I like this one's a little bit more simpler. And for my concept, I want it to be more about what's going on with these two people, the interaction between the two people here. With this particular scene, there was so much going on. You're not really sure. It's just really, it feels kind of stagnant. There's no interaction, and I would like to have more interaction between the two people, more of a stronger concept. So, with so many things going on, I had to simplify it to a certain extent. And then over here on the left, I did some black and white studies, and you can see here that there's 3 of them here that are very, very small. They're maybe like 1.5 or 2 inches by 1.5 inches. Doing it that small helps me avoid a lot of detail, and which is good because I can see the overall abstract pattern. And this is really helpful for me. And I can do a little color study too, and get an impact. It's like doing one of these paintings and putting it all the way across the room and kind of seeing over the overall impact. And doing it that small, that's what it feels like to me. So it's helpful. But it's kind of like, but as as you see here from these black and whites and those little color studies, in the beginning stages, what I do is what you see here. I have it's kind of a messy interpretation, but I'm not real clean with my sketches. But with these are my idea sketches. And a lot of times I'll start a painting off where I will just start doing abstractions. I will start feeling it out without anything in my mind's eye, and then I'll start honing into my concept. So this is just an abstract pattern, and it has influences on what I'm going to be doing, but I want to just keep it real general, and then I might get more and more specific, and then start coming into a more realized version, and it'll open my mind up to do more of the things that I have in my black and white studies. And I may kind of walk through it in my mind's eye too. It's like, where's the primary points of interest, the secondary points of interest, and the third, and so on. But I don't want to have too many things going on that are too interesting, because it's going to be too distracting. I want to have my primary point of interest extremely strong. So, and then have my secondary point of interest as a supporting element. So, and I make little notes to myself too, off to the side. The primary center of interest is the woman in red, right there, and then watch for my division of space, and I have to pay close attention to how my space is divided. Watch for anything being divided in half, and watch for, even if it's there's a shape out here, watch for things being divided in between these shapes that's created. That's gonna make it too equal. Watch for tangent lines that are lining up with anything. That's gonna flatten out your subject, bring the background too far forward into the foreground. Watch for anything like that, and also leave room for discovery. Leave room for you to have fun with this. So I don't like to have everything 100% planned out, because I get too bored. I like to have something to discover along the way, even after I've done my studies. So I like to experiment, and I like to expand on what I've already worked out. I got a lot of stuff worked out right now, and so it's going to give me a lot of information to work from, but I also want room to kind of grow in the painting as well. So I can emotionally attach myself to it even more. So I think that's about it for the studies. But I'm going to show you my photos here. I'm going to stand out of the way so you can actually see the monitor that I'm working from. It's a large monitor, and so it's off to my right here. And what you're going to see here, these are some of the pictures that I have in the scene. This is the scene that I'm going to be working with, and I'm going to show you some photos that I have here too, because I can't have 4 or 5 different photos up here all at once. So I printed out some 8x10s that are pretty nice that I can work from at the same time as I'm working from these. And in the studio, I have a lot, almost like a wall of photos that I have, along with my my monitor, with my my 2 images that you see, because it helps me. I can scan around a lot easier. It'd be ideal if I had a full-size wall that I could put 20 photos up on the screen, but at this point I can't do that. So I'm going to work with what I have here. And what you will see in your market scene is people will be moving around a lot, and they'll be moving around very quickly. So you have to be very observant and very fast about things. And one of the things I suggest is putting your camera on consecutive shots, where one shot comes right after the other. And digital cameras, you can set that in your menu. And that way you can take multiple shots. When you push your shutter release down, you'll take 3 or 4 shots all at once, and then you can go back and look at it and see which ones are the best and delete the ones that don't work. But you may be able to find a moment in those shots that works better and looks more natural. But that's what I try to do with these photos. And you're going to see how this is going to be put together, because I'm going to be really counting on my my color studies and my black and white studies a lot. I'm going to really be using those quite a bit. And because with this particular scene, it's going to be extremely challenging, because it's so much a pieces, parts kind of painting. You're piecing everything together, but you have to really rely a lot on your memory and your feelings about your scene too, to really tie everything together so it doesn't look like it's pieced. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to do my best. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you some of the photographs that I have down here, and also just a couple examples of another little color study from one of my other China paintings that I did. This is a color study that I did from life in one of the markets. It's in a town called Shizhou. That's not that far away from where the town is where I'm going to be working on the painting today. But this was a chicken seller, and this was his wife, and she would always repeat her patterns coming back to sit down here. She might go pick up some chickens and move it around, or whatever. And but she would always come back, because she was the person who was going to be selling the things. So, and there was always someone walking around with a basket on their back. So it was a great element to have on this side to balance out, my idea. And there was another woman who came up that I took a photograph of, and she was buying the chickens that I couldn't. The thing is, whenever someone's coming in and they're purchasing things, you're going to have to paint them from a photo, because they're not part of the cycle. That part of the cycle is just an intro that only comes in once. It breaks the cycle for a second and then leaves. So be cautious when you're painting customers from life. Avoid that. Paint the proprietors, the people who are selling the produce or the chickens or whatever else they're selling. But those people that are staying put. So what I did was I took a photo of her, because I liked her, because she had a baby on her back and everything, all kinds of cool colors, and she had some ratty looked like an old baby carrier that I really liked. This is the abstract version. This is the color study of the larger piece. And she has a little baby on her back right there, and she's looking at, the guy that was standing right in front of the woman that was sitting down. That's the proprietor that was selling the chickens, and he's weighing them. So I was trying to balance out these shapes and have his wife sitting down right here, and in the painting I put like their son or their grandson with the back towards you, right over here. But everything is centered around this section right here. So that's this is one of the ways I use my other paintings, and it may not be exactly the same composition, but I can piece it together to make it into something else, that another concept that I can see in my photos, but utilize my color studies to actually pull another feeling out of it, another concept. So it's not always you have to paint exactly what you did from life. You can take a section of it and expand on it and make it your own. This is one of the photos I can use. These are close-ups of, I think I'm going to be using her. I got to piece together some of her arms because I don't like that interaction that she's going to have with the primary figure. I want her to be kind of like they just either exchanged some of the produce or money or something. There's more of an engagement between the two. And I have another shot in there that's on my computer that has another shot of hands that I can actually piece together in there. But I like her headdress and everything too, and all her little details in her outfits. And in this little town, they're the Bai people, and but even in some of the towns of Shizhou and others, there's Bai people that dress a little bit different too. So you have to really pay close attention to their outfits and their clothing, because you want to be authentic with that as much as possible. And I'm not from China, so I have to ask a lot of questions. I have to ask a lot of people who are native to the area, and make a lot of notes to myself so I can remember a lot of these things, so I can be as authentic as I can. Because these are beautiful people, and you would love to be able to express their lives in the most authentic, most honest way. So this is another photo that I can use. And be aware with your memories. I mean, be aware on how much the camera will blow out. And I'm not a great photographer, by any means. So I need to learn a heck of a lot more about photography. So, but I can remember a lot. So I remember what these things look like from life, and how much a lot of these lights are blown out, and a lot of the shadows are too dark, and things like that. So painting from life, as much as possible, builds on that memory, and you can actually see how inaccurate the photo is. So I never depend on the photo 100%. It's more of a like a memory enhancer. But what you're going to see here in the painting I'm going to be doing, that's going to be like the primary figure's body, but you see that she's going to have she has different clothes on. But I'm going to use her clothing, arrangement here, but you see that they have the same kind of hats on, similar hats, but she's going to be dressed like her, but in this body position. And I have another photo where I reversed, where her head is turned in the direction of the woman who's selling her the produce. So there's going to be a lot of parts here, and I'm going to do my best to piece it all together. But this one right here is just another thing, just for the anatomy of the umbrella that I have here, because it was a really windy day, that day that I was painting, and there was a huge rainstorm that came out of the blue. It was weird. It was a very bright sunny day, and the mountain was like right up behind me, and I was right around this big, gigantic, gorgeous tree in this little courtyard. And The umbrellas were facing, you know, in my other photo, they were facing down a little bit because of the wind. And then when the storm came through, it blew it up a little bit, and I liked it better. So I took the shot of it to kind of remember, and then also my life study as well. But I think that's about it. And we're gonna get started on this this painting now, and I'm looking forward to it because I'm excited about it. So before we get started, I want to go over my tools with you, my tools and my equipment. So first of all, let me go to my palette, and I'm going to start with my white first. Okay, and I have two different whites here. First here I have like a Permalba white. This one is a Daniel Smith stiff mixed white, and the stiff mixed white is it's just got a heavier body to it, and I really like it. Right here is ivory black. Here is my Prussian blue. Here is a colorium blue. This one right here is green gold from Winsor & Newton. Permanent yellow lemon, and this is from Holbein. And this one right here next to it is a permanent yellow light, permanent orange from Holbein. Naphthol red from Gamblin. Yellow ochre, Indian yellow deep, Venetian red, permanent rose, raw umber, burnt umber, same manufacturers. Transparent oxide red. Here, what you see is like a mother pile, palette scraping pile that I have from like previous paintings that I like to introduce. This particular warm gray that I have here, I mix from scratch. I mix it from a lot of other palette scrapings and everything else to get like a warmer gray, and I kind of loosely mix it a little bit. Next is a cool gray, and I use Portland Gray Deep for right over here. So that's a great color from Gamblin to use. And right next to this I think they call it a brown ochre. It's a brown ochre from Sennelier. So that's my palette colors, and my medium that I'm using is the Winsor & Newton's liquid, and then I just kind of dip into that. I don't really use that much of it, but I use a small amount. And then I have Gamsol from Gamblin in my little brush washer right here that you can see. But I don't wash my brushes as much as I probably should. I'm not that clean, so I just wipe my brushes off a lot and try to keep my brushes separate, you know, value-wise, and so they're not getting too dirty. But I'm going to show you my brush setup here too. Hopefully you can see this okay. I'm going to start off over here. Here are some of my my softening brushes, because I use these quite a bit. I don't like to overly soften, but they're great to have. This is a fan brush, Badger Hair fan brush from Nickel, and that works great because I can use one side for the darks, one side for the lights. Right over here is like these China bristles. Like I get them at the art store at Dick Blick, where you can find. They're real cheap. The hairs come out of them, so whenever you get them, just kind of start pulling the hairs out right away to kind of get, you know, the initial hairs out of there so it doesn't wind up in your painting. I have tweezers right next to my easel at my studio that specifically for pulling out hairs out of my painting. Right next to this is the Silver Brush line of bristle brushes, and I also use the 209 series from Utrecht. I like a lot too, because I'm kind of abusive with my brushes, and they're very economical. The next ones here are the Nickels, the 5590s and the 5520s. The 5520 is this middle one. That's the filbert right there. And the 5590s are the flats that are long. And the more you use these things, the better they get, because they get ragged. But these are relatively new. And right next to here is the Kolinsky sables, the round sables right here. This is the Renaissance, but they kind of went out of, I think they went out of business or something, but can't find them anymore. But they're really inexpensive, and I can abuse the heck out of them and not feel bad about it. what we have here, this is more of my special brushes. These are the ones that I've recently started to make. These are just probably about a month old, and I like the organic shapes that they make. You know, I was in Arizona with a buddy of mine, and we went over to a guy's studio, Buck McCain, and he was a great inspiration. And my friend Chauncey, it was great for him to take me over there to see that, because it kind of opened my mind into what you can do with brushes, and experimenting and actually, you know, making your brushes on your own. You can do a lot of different techniques and stuff that you can't do with your regular brushes, like you know, twisting and turning and raking it backwards, and you know, flicking the paint off your brush and everything else. It makes a lot of more interesting things. And if you can see this right here in the camera, I hope they can see that. These handles are about 3 inches longer than an average one, and that extra 3 inches makes a huge difference. You know, I can get a little bit more distance from the canvas, and it doesn't feel like a bat. It doesn't feel heavy or anything. So I really enjoy these, and I'm constantly experimenting, trying to make different tools. These are the knives that I use. I have a ton more at home. I have a hard time keeping them clean, but they still work well. This is my primary mixing one, and I paint with these two, and I can mix with this also. And this is more of the painting brush for laying the paint on the canvas. So also what you have here, and I'm not going to flip this thing over because you know, you'll be looking right into the camera, but this is a handheld mirror that I've had for years. It's broken a number of times, and but I just keep it for nostalgic reasons. So eventually I'll get a new one. But I always have my mirror handy so I can look in reverse. And today we have a large mirror behind me, so I can turn around and look behind me to kind of see how my painting is coming together. And I've gotten in a habit to where I stand up a lot and I walk back and forth constantly, and I'm always looking in the mirror. Like every 2 seconds practically, I feel like I'm turning around, looking in the mirror to get a fresh perspective on my work. So in my studio, I have a really large mirror too that I'm constantly referencing back into. So I think that's that, and we can get started. I'm going to mix up some of my mother piles based off of I'm going to be looking at my studies that I did from life and did from the studio too. And I am going to start mixing up these piles to get myself going. If I would just start working right now, it would take me forever, because mixing up from scratch all these things that, I already have my color studies, so I can actually get like a generalized piles, pretty relatively accurate based off of what I've already done. So then as the painting gets going and as I start to discover new paths, I can kind of I can change my mixtures just a little bit more. But I need to have enough paint to get going. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, first of all, I want to get some of my darks going here. And let me see. I'm going to pull some of this color down here. I'm going to have to get more. Forgot to get more of my transparent oxide red. And what I want to do is I want to organize my palette to a certain extent to where my darks are down here, my middle tones are through the middle, and my lights are up there towards my white. I don't want to get too much of the white down in here. It gets things all muddy and nasty. So I want to keep it relatively organized. Oh, I forgot one important thing. Let's see. What I started doing, I started putting on these plastic gloves, and it kind of keeps the solvents and the paints from getting into my skin. I started having a rash on my fingers because I was painting every day, and the turf started getting into my skin, and I didn't like that rash that was happening on here. I didn't think it was that healthy, and so I wanted to try to start staying a little bit more healthy with the chemicals that I use, because as artists we paint so much and we're constantly around all kinds of dangerous chemicals. It's best to be as safe as you possibly can. And I got used to this. I never wanted to wear gloves, but I got used to it over time. So now it's like a part of my hand, so it's not a big deal. But I came from a company called SAS, and it's like SAS Safety Materials or something like that. You can do a Google search. But you can buy 2 boxes of 100, and they come in different sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. So these are the larges, and they work good. And they don't tear that easy. Also, the other ones, the blue ones and the white ones, they tear, and I can reuse these like 3 or 4 times. So it's worth it. It's a lot easier to clean up too. Okay, so now I'm looking at my studies, and I'm actually going to mix up a mother pile of that grayer background area. Grab some of this as a starting point, and because I want to get more of a violet in my first little study, my second little study that I did in the studio. I think I made my background not as violet as I would like for it to be. I don't want to go too far violet because I don't want to throw it off of my harmony here. Stick some yellow ochre in there. Okay, I'm going to grab some of the reds that I have here. And I like crossing over color too, like taking reds into reds, yellows into yellows, and vice versa, and then kind of tweaking them as I go. I have to lighten up some of this stuff because there's going to be a light side to that. And remember, these are generalized. They'll be subtly modified as I get going. And there's going to be some of the greens in there that are all in the shadow for the most part. There's going to be flickers of light coming over the top of the umbrella, and kind of lighten up the ends of some of the vegetables. I'm going to see how the pattern is going to be arranged, so I can actually make it the pattern a little stronger than what I have here. So I'm going to work with that. But starting off like this actually will help me get going a lot easier. So a gray-green, that's not too shabby. We'll leave that. And remember, we got like I got to talk to you about my canvas I'm working on too after I get through working on this. But we have a 19-inch by 20-inch canvas we're going to be working on, so I got to mix up enough paint to actually cover some ground. Oftentimes, this color right here is actually like a good starter for a lot of these market scenes. Because I think like dirty color is relative. It can be very beautiful depending on what you have it next to. So let me see here. Got some action coming into here I could use, I see. This, where the heck am I going to put that? I'll put that there. Watch that Prussian blue, that's some strong stuff right there. I gotta remind myself of these things. So I'm gonna try to keep talking as much as possible. It's kind of like I'm gonna be talking about like what's in my head and what's in my brain. I'm thinking about. I'm gonna try to explain as much what I'm doing as possible. If I don't talk that much for a certain amount of time, it's probably because I'm concentrating in a certain area and I need to be quiet. But I'm going to try to explain as much as I can. That Venetian red is extremely strong also. So you have to watch that. And in your fundamentals class that I highly recommend everyone taking, you will discuss the properties of each color, and that is paramount. I mean, you have to understand the properties of all your colors. You have to understand its tinting strength, how weak or how strong it is, and the overall value of each color, and constantly keeping that in mind. But understanding the properties of each color that you're using will help you when you're decision making. So you won't have to think too much about what each color can do. You will already understand it, and you will grab it for a specific reason. You should always have a specific reason for the reasons why you're grabbing the color that you are. So I want to chill out. A lot of times I'm actually needing to chill out my whole palette, and a lot of my colors don't ever get this bright, hardly ever. So you just need to be really aware of that. You know, a lot of my paintings are more tonal, and that's why a lot of my grays really work out for me, but I don't want to depend on them in a way where they'll take over my palette. I want to keep my grays colorful. So all these grays you see on my palette, I want to amp up every once in a while to really bring a lot of life into the gray areas. Okay, so now I'm going to grab some of this. We got some mojo happening in the background where it's going to be bright back there. I'm gonna bring some mix a lot of these yellows and oranges together. Oops. And that, remember I told you about the, I'm actually going to loosely mix this. That color feels weird on my palette, so I'm going to loosely mix some of my Indian yellow deep into it. And I think I'm going to be modifying that because, you know, I pay close attention to how everything is working harmoniously also, so I need to figure that out. So I got my transparent oxide red out there. I put a little bit of my mother pile of palette scrapings on there as well. I could utilize that in this painting. And what I did was I mixed up a little bit of my titanium white with my Indian yellow deep, just right over here off to the side, because I'm going to utilize that for my lightest light in there as well. And right on that woman's sleeve where the sun is casting around, because I want to make it appear very, very strongly lit morning light coming right from the side. A lot stronger than what I have in from my life study. So I want to give a little bit more drama to it. So I'm going to really try to work that out. So what I'm going to do here is I kind of left myself open for discovery here, because sometimes I will kind of grid it out to a certain extent where I'll kind of subdivide it in half, and my study also to kind of give me some certain placement. But I don't think it's that necessary for now, because my shapes, I got some pretty large shapes that I can deal with. But I'm going to start out very abstractly and build off of that, build off the abstraction. So let me get cranked up here. So I'm thinking about that whole dark shape that's in the foreground. I'm thinking about my eye level is just about right at her head. Maybe just a little bit above her head, because I was up on a hill a little bit, but it's not going to be that drastic. Thinking about the space that I have here. That's my eye level. Her head is going to be about right here. Add just a little bit of terp because I need to cover a lot of ground. It's kind of lots of warmer greens in here. And I just want to feel the pattern first before I start laying in some of my darkest darks and my extremes, my strongest color, lightest light. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to add just a touch of liquid too because I want it to set up. This is all going to be in shadow. I'm going to get into my drawing here a little later, but I want to get the overall abstraction working first. I'll leave that open right here. It's also kind of makes it a point of entry in a way where the viewer will actually feel like they could actually enter the scene. Sometimes, like whenever there is a in a painting where you have like the foreground too blocked up with stuff, the viewer won't feel like they have a point of entry. So you want to, even if it's a small point of entry, maybe they could, they could feel like they can swim around there to come back to the background. But if it's like a blockade in the front, it'll be hard for them to feel like they can go over it and get to the background. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Okay, and let's see. I think it's going to work, but what concerns me is this point that's coming right down here. This is kind of aggravating for me. And in my studies, I have it too. And it's like I almost want it to be over here to where it's not so much right on top of her head where the end of that umbrella is. I'm going to try to move it over here to see how that looks. And I'm going to put a little swag in it. Hello, my name's Scott Powers, and thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be doing a demonstration of one of my most favorite subjects to paint, and that is a market scene. I'm going to mix up some of my mother piles based off of I'm going to be looking at my studies that I did from life and did from the studio too, and I am going to start mixing up these piles to get myself going. If I would just start working right now, it would take me forever because mixing up from scratch all these things that I already have my color studies, so I can actually get like a generalized piles, pretty relatively accurate based off of what I've already done. So I got my transparent oxide red out there. I put a little bit of my mother pile of palette scrapings on there as well. I could utilize that in this painting. And what I did was I mixed up a little bit of my titanium white with my Indian yellow deep, just right over here off to the side, because I'm going to utilize that for my lightest light in there as well. So I'm thinking about that whole dark shape that's in the foreground. I'm thinking about my eye level is just about right at her head. Maybe just a little bit above her head, because I was up on a hill a little bit, but it's not going to be that drastic. Thinking about the space that I have here. That's my eye level. Her head is going to be about right here. is all going to be in shadow. And knowing that I'm going to be coming back over the top of this strong color, and I could always gray it down, which in parts of it I'll have to gray it down to a certain extent because I don't want it to look like there's like this yellow dust coming in here. But this gives me a good value range too. But after I start dragging my grayer colors over the top of it, it'll start equalizing. Yeah, they've already started to set up a little bit. It's a little easier to apply the paint. I want to put a little bit of that warm tone coming up from the ground on that sleeve. Sleeve is and see this shape right here, see this is surrounded by these darks. And it is a smaller shape than this big shape. So this needs to be darker than what these are. So it looks like it belongs. I'm going to get some dark areas down in here. I really think that after putting in some of these dark areas and splitting up this, I need to get down in this area because this is still in the first stage, and I need to start building up that dark. Because looking at it in the mirror, it needs some something down here. So let me get rolling on that. And looking at my study too, I've got to bring that weight down there. Got to maintain perspective also. I've got to keep that in mind. Let's see, put some more darker accents into his jacket. I don't want the dark accents to be too dark, though, because I don't want it to compete with anything that's going on over here. Because as you can imagine, there's an enormous amount of work that goes into a market scene, and it is something that takes a lot of planning, and but you can actually make things a lot easier on yourself by going out and experiencing it. So It's one of my most favorite things to do, and it's nothing that gets my blood going more than painting the market. So, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I certainly did, and thank you so much.
That was Life in the Market with Scott Tallman Powers, and you can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, in the comments section, there's a special discount code. Thank you for watching.